Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens with your hosts, Jake and Scott. In this week's episode, we're talking about cocktails, creating cocktails, RTDs. So sit back and buckle into the latest episode of the Bourbon Lens. Charles Joly, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about all things cocktails, your experience in the whiskey and cocktail area. We're excited because you've got a lot of history and you've done a lot of things. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Super excited. We sit here. I'm going to focus on this first because what's in front of me is what I'm drinking, and that's where my brain goes because I'm a simpleton. You have a line of RTD, and this is the first time I've ever drinking a daiquiri non-frozen. So we're drinking Crafthouse ready to drink cocktails. Celebrated 10 years last year. I'm excited. Never had it before. And these pack a punch, 14%, ABV on this one in particular. So Charles, how's a bartender go from, being behind the bar and making great drinks for people to having ready to drink cocktails for people to enjoy around the world?
Yeah, for sure. So we were super, super early into the prepared cocktail game. I was running a craft cocktail bar in Chicago, in downtown Chicago, called the Drawing Room. It was 2000. We opened that bar in 2007, which is very early in the craft cocktail movement. Honestly, it was we're bartenders, and we are, we run bars. We host parties every night behind the bar, and so this came from that direction. It didn't come chasing any trend because there was no trend at that point. It was our guests asking for, being like, we love your drinks. How do we get these when we're not at your bar? And they would make, we give recipes, they make recipes, and they don't ever taste exactly like they do at the bar, right? Like, that's our job. So we started asking a question, why aren't people making good cocktails, and why does everything pre-bottled taste not great? And so we used our know-how, and just, instead of, like, the key to this is pretty simple, but the reason people didn't do it is because it was more expensive to make your cocktails properly. And I don't know if they had the know-how, because they're coming at it from a big corporation who's coming out with a new brand that they're going to launch. We're coming at it from, we know how to make cocktails. So if I can make one cocktail, awesome. If I can make 100 cocktails for a party, great. Now, can I make a big batch of 10,000 cocktails, and then can we just take that and put it into a bottle? And that's what we do. That's what we do to this day, 11 years later. Each one of those cans has 4, 5, 6 ingredients. That's it. There's no chemical preservation in any of them. We use pasteurized juice for shelf life, so the things can be shelf stable. But we don't use any. We're making simple syrup when we're doing a sour. We're buying high quality spirits. The lime and lemon are lime and lemon. They're just pasteurized, as I mentioned. And that's it. And we just, it is the slower, more expensive, but it's hands down more delicious. So we don't make drinks to taste like a cocktail. And that's, I think, the difference. A lot of things are simulated to taste like a cocktail. We make real cocktails. We just make big batches and then put them into our little cans. And I'm sorry to go run on here, but I love that you said you've never had a daiquiri that's not frozen, because especially like cocktail bartenders, if you ask any of us, like, daiquiri is one of our favorite cocktails. And we're talking about like a Puerto Rican or a Cuban style daiquiri, a classic daiquiri, not Bourbon Street, not, not a cruise ship necessarily. And there's some great cocktails on cruise ships. Actually, I do some stuff with Virgin Voyages, and they have an incredible bar program. But that idea of this, tall, like slushy, super sweet, like a daiquiri at its heart, rum, lime, and sugar. And there's some awesome rum. And I know that you guys, obviously, bourbon's runs through your veins. But like, when I say the type of rums I drink, I always describe them as whiskey drinker rums. They're the extra age stuff that you can just sit and sip on the rocks, or sip neat. You could plug them into any. We actually had a rum old fashioned back in the day with Crafthouse. I love to use an extra aged rum in the old fashioned application.
For sure. And I just realized that the daiquiri build and the Gold Rush build are very similar. You're just swapping out the spirit, rum for bourbon, right? And the builds are very similar from a
Yep.
ratio perspective, which I found to be cool. And shout out to Bob, who runs our cocktails focused program, in his conversation, because he's like, here's your build. It's a daiquiri build. And I was like, I've never had a daiquiri slusherized. This is delightful.
So this is your first daiquiri.
My first real daiquiri.
This is your first daiquiri.
And it's a pineapple daiquiri too.
Yeah.
Which is, it's funny, that was a total bartender handshake cocktail. Because the guys from Plantaray Rums, which formerly Plantation Rums, now Plantaray Rums, came out with this Stiggins extra fancy pineapple rum. And they do an infused rum with the husks of the pineapple. Absolutely delicious, these Barbados rums. And bartenders fell in love with this stuff. And it popped up first at Tales of the Cocktail, which is a huge bartending and spirits convention, basically gathering in New Orleans every year. It's been going on for, I don't know, probably 20 years now, or something like that. And it's, and they launched it for that. And everyone was like, we need this in our bars. And then people started making the pineapple daiquiris with that. We throw a dash of Angostura bitters in ours as well, to add a little more complexity. And it's just a great, like, end of the night. You'll hear people talk at a bar, be like, can we get a round of snackeries? Or like, you send them out and you just make one or two daiquiris in a shaker, and then you pour them out around 6-7 people for just little 1.5 ounce toss backs,
Oh man.
So what's the difference between a daiquiri and a mojito then? Because that sounds a lot like a mojito, but
yeah, your mojito's going to have the key addition of mint. It's a long drink. You're going to get your crushed ice in that. You're going to have a little soda on top as well. We talk about, and this is the way you said, like the build on a Gold Rush or whiskey sour. Gold Rush is just a fancy whiskey sour, really, or a daiquiri. They're both in the sour family of cocktails. And what that means is you've got at the heart of those cocktails 3 things: spirit, whatever that spirit is, bourbon, rum, gin, tequila, some sort of citrus, and then some sort of sweetener to balance the citrus, so it's not like strippingly dry. Your margarita is a sour, your cosmopolitan's a sour, obviously whiskey sours, pisco sours, all these things. The mojito is a unique cocktail, though. It's in its own. It's a long drink, but it does have rum, lime, sugar, right? Like, so we've got, and there's a lot of cocktails that have, we call that the Holy Trinity. A lot of, some bartenders will refer to it as that, between rum, lime, and sugar. So many great cocktails, caipirinha, so many of the Mai Tai, so many of the great tiki cocktails hit in that spot. Tea punch from Martinique, using the agricole rums. So it's at the heart of that. They're all rum, lime, and a little bit of sweetener to balance it out. But they make beautifully different cocktails. So
it's like an offshoot of, yeah.
Yeah, they're in the family tree of cocktails. So you got 2 big branches on the family tree of cocktails when you're learning to bartend, and even if you're just making drinks at home. The biggest branches are going to be sours, and like those are those drinks again, that like spirit, sweetener, citrus, and then spirit forward cocktails that have no citrus, that have no juices in them. So your Manhattans, your martinis, your old fashions, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
I'm
going back to the basics now.
Hey,
hey, man, I go back to the basics all the time. I love it. I love bartending.
That's what we need.
Well, we do, because noobs. I'm a terrible cocktail maker. I've gotten better. It was really rough at first. It was real bad, but we've gotten better. But so that's interesting. From a basics perspective, you also are in the barware, glassware, perspective. And this is something we talk about, like building your bar back with the right spirits, the things that you should have, for someone that's looking to create cocktails. What's the minimum barware that they should have? And what are the, spirits to be able to create or craft? Like, if you could say, like, you need lime and lemon, obviously, from a citrus perspective, like maybe you want Aperol or Campari, whatever. What are the basics to build that bar back? Because I'm interested to your point of view.
Yeah, for sure. And it is, you can go nuts with it, right? But like to get started, it's really simple. And I always tell people as well, if you don't have every tool, doesn't mean you can't make the cocktails. You can make cocktails with anything. You grab a thermos, a coffee mug that's got a top that screws onto it. I've shaken cocktails in Tupperware containers before. It doesn't, what I mean? If you're in a place that you don't have your tools with you, then it's all right, but the very basics of your bar, obviously talk about a cocktail shaker. This is actually a piece that I designed. This is one where I have a point of contention. If you ask most people to draw a cocktail shaker, they're not drawing a 2-piece cocktail shaker like this. They're going to draw a little 3-piece with a cap. It's that classic design. That to me is not the best one to start with. You see those a lot. They get seized up from time to time. You end up losing the cap. They're not great ones. Like you see almost all professional bartenders in the United States particularly are using this 2-piece shaker, 10 on 10 or big 10 with a tempered glass on the top, depending on what you've got. And it's a great tool. Super simple. It's nothing's changed about this in 150 years. It's beautiful, but there's obviously you get one to your style. Like I said, I designed these and informed what small features into every tool that I design that for practicality. And also I like, if you want them to look good as well, both form and function. So you want an accurate jigger to measure with. Cannot emphasize that enough. There are a lot of terrible jiggers out there. Put them on a little scale and you put water in there and then you measure it and look at the lines on them and they're way off. So you want an accurate measuring device of some sort. And I do recommend, especially when you're learning to make cocktails, measure. Keep a little notebook in your recipes because it's all taste, right? So if your whiskey sour, let's just take the bourbon, the lemon, and the simple syrup, like this. Not worry about eggs and bitters or anything that we might be tossing in there to make that cocktail. You might like 2 ounces of bourbon, 1 ounce of lemon juice, and 3/4 ounce of simple syrup. Like that's a ratio that I like. But you might be like, this is too tart or too sweet, or you grab 100 proof bourbon as opposed to a 80 or 90 proof bourbon, or get something overproof. It can change it. And so you want to know and measure that, kind of keep track of what you're doing so you know what your personal taste is. My job as a bartender is not to make cocktails for me, it's to make cocktails for my guests as well. So I need to understand kind of what I refer to as the collective palate, of the masses in whatever area I'm in. And that changes. If I'm bartending in central Chicago, in the heart of the city, that might be different. If I'm bartending down in San Juan in Puerto Rico, that the palate might change a little bit, or just bouncing around the country. Even if I drive 30 minutes outside of the city and I'm doing something in the burbs, the palate gets a tiny bit sweeter. I need to adjust for that. And then I guess to continue answering your question. So shaker, jigger, a bar spoon so you can do some stirring. A muddler is a great thing to have. Citrus press, essential. And you should have that in your kitchen anyways. A lot of these tools cross over. If you don't have your bar spoon handy, grab a chopstick. It works great in a pinch. A muddler, you can find anything that you could kind of press or smash with, works just fine. Good, like I always tell people, a good knife, a good sharp knife, it's key. Again, that's going to be in your kitchen drawer, but learning knife skills is such a, I want all my bartenders to do it, but because you use it every day, you eat every day of your life, right? So learn how to use your knife properly, and you'll be much more adept and happier in the kitchen. But then, like when it comes to booze, that's where things start to get expensive, right? You guys know this. You have a little bit of a bourbon habit. It can, you're talking. It gets crazy, right? Mm-hmm. So you can start with a few bottles, like the basics, and buy what you like. Maybe you're working on a new cocktail, and that's how you start to slowly add stuff into it. You're like, I had this drink at a bar, or I read it in a blog somewhere, or saw, heard about it on a podcast, right? Like it's, now I want to make a last word. So I've got to go buy chartreuse or maraschino liqueur or something like that. And so that's how you start to add some of those bottles, but you don't need to go out and buy the whole liquor store, right? Like a good bourbon, nice bottle of gin, nice bottle of Blanco tequila, bottle of vodka. We're talking about rum, like a bottle of rum for the back bar to start. And I think, and you guys, you tell me what you think, but I think you can probably find for less than $35 every category something of quality to get going, to start your bar easily.
100%.
I would say, right? There's a lot of fewer and fewer bourbons that are like the value bourbons, because they all, everybody found out about them. And so they put them in fancier bottles and raised the price of the stuff that was on the bottom shelf that we loved. And we're like, this is great, 100 proof, straight bourbon that was hiding out down there. It slowly got more expensive, but still like less than $30 a bottle. Great for making cocktails. And I think that's the key. It's like, are you sipping it or are you making cocktails? Because you can be a little more forgiving if you're mixing it. You still want something that's high quality. You don't want a flawed spirit. You want a good quality distillate. But
for sure, no, I think that's an awesome setup, and that's what I've realized is like I never had a really good Blanco tequila until I started paying attention. We did some tequila stuff, and when you have a high quality spirit and you go to make a margarita, it's just so much better. Or you make a Paloma or whatever drink you're going to make, it just makes a complete difference to have high quality spirit. And most of those high quality spirits you can grab for under $50. Everything is price creep at this point. 100 and Old Forester 100 rye whiskey, you just hit that like $25 mark and you're good to go if you need some cocktails and something easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's $50. I mean, you're getting some nice stuff at 50 even, a bottle. I'm a big agave drinker. Big tequila mezcal fan. It might be Blanco tequila might be what I go to most often when I'm pouring myself something, just a little bit of that, maybe an ice cube in it. That's it, and I'll never turn down a margarita. But you're absolutely right. It is, your end result can only be as good as the pieces that you put into it. You gotta, if you're making cocktails at home, squeeze your juice fresh. Like, it makes a world of difference. Do not buy that little green lime that's in the plastic jug that used to sit in our, in Auntie's fridge, and use that. Like, it's not going to get you anywhere. You're going to be like, why does my cocktail not taste right? For the love of God, make your own simple syrup. It's just sugar and water. Don't spend $9 on 32 cents worth of sugar water. And it's just a great first skill to make that one ingredient really easy to make it. And then you can start to do cool infusions into it as well, which is most simple. Like whiskey sour, take that same whiskey sour this time of year, the first thing that comes up out of the ground, strawberries, some of the first ones. I mean, like strawberry infused whiskey, like sour, it's fucking awesome. It's so good, so simple. Strawberry and mint and a little whiskey sour just to give it a bit of character to it. Like, awesome, especially when that stuff is in season and they actually taste like something. But that goes into your simple syrup. You can do, you can infuse your whiskey, I guess, if you wanted to. But those basics, it's fun. I mean, it's making cocktails. We're talking about learning a new skill or practicing something. It's not like, we're not learning accounting. I'm not asking you to figure, no offense to accountants, God bless. Like, we need them, right? It's not my brain. My brain doesn't work like that. But like, give me a few bottles and some ingredients and tell me to try and make something that tastes good. I'm like, all right, that's a good time. No. Even you drink your mistakes.
Yeah. Even like a not so good one, you're still working, you're still working on something. So.
Yep, exactly. Somebody in the house will drink it,
or someone will. Yeah,
you got to have the guinea
that's
pigs.
Out of balance. See you later. That's what they would do with my cocktails.
Yeah. Well, and you can fix it. That's good. We learn from our mistakes too. Yeah. Like, I'll see my guest's face, and you can read it like a person. They'll never, like, very rarely will they be like, this is off. Like, because people are polite for the most, you know what I mean? It's not impolite to tell your bartender, be like, this is on the sweet side for me. You know what? We take it. I can put it in a shaker, put a little splash of extra lime in there, lemon, whatever, give it a pop and pour it right back. It's all right. Yeah. Like, I mean, if the cocktail's totally off and not for you, well, then we can start from scratch. You don't want to do that 10 times with somebody, but you can tweak your cocktails even after you make them. Yeah. And the more you taste, your palate's, it's muscle memory. The more you taste, the better it gets. Yeah. Taste with other people. It's just like you guys, sitting drinking a new whiskey. You can sit there and do it yourself and write down some tasting notes. But if you get 4 or 5 people together and you're all sitting around, now you start to, it starts to build up, and you can playing off one another, and you're like, oh yeah, I catch that or whatever, and then like all of a sudden you got a page of tasting notes that you can cumulatively put together. So
yeah.
What are your thoughts on the addition of salt or saline to cocktails?
Yeah, I love it. I've got saline right here on my bar. I keep a little 20% saline solution. And we talk about salt, just like in food, to flavor enhancer, brightens everything up, kind of binds flavors together, but it brightens. Also on your palate, it has the additional side effect of muting bitterness. So like if you have somebody who wants to try a Negroni cocktail, that's gin and sweet vermouth and Campari, and that Campari's only got too much bite for it, put a few drops of saline in there, and it tamps the bitter down a little bit and can be a little bit more chill. So here's the thing with salt. Don't just throw pinches of salt in your cocktail, because one, it's not going to all dissolve. Two, there's no way to measure that. And if you're like, oh, it's this much, it's not like, we're not with Granny like making cookies, you know what I mean? Which like, that's the way, right? That's the way my grandmother never wrote a recipe down in her life, right? She just tasted everything, stuck her finger in the pot and tasted it. Can't do that with a single cocktail, like a little too much salt. You never want the drink to taste salty, right? If you can taste the salt, it's gone too far. You're putting just enough in there to enhance and brighten the flavor. So, a few drops, 8-10 drops, and you're not gonna taste that in a cocktail. That's pretty much the threshold. But it'll be a nice, if you just do them side, and if people are like, I don't like, no, I'm not putting salt in my cocktail. Do them side by side. Yeah. I did that. I remember very well early in my bartending career, and the cocktail side of my bartending career, when people were just learning about these things in the aughts and the 2000s. A writer like just didn't buy the difference between shaking and stirring cocktails, and which sounds crazy now, right? Because it's so like understood. And I'm like, okay, I can't argue with you here. This is what I'm going to do. And I made 2 Manhattans, and I shook one and I stirred one. Manhattan should be stirred. Let me say that. Like there's,
screw it up.
Cocktails are not science, and there's not a ton of rules, but you can't shaking Manhattan's terrible. And I put them next to one another, and they visually look different. And when you sip them next to each other, they taste completely different because they're texturally different. Shaking aerates a cocktail, and millions of little bubbles in there. You can feel it. It's light. It's aerated on your tongue in a different way than a stirred cocktail that is very silky. It's smooth. It's got more richness to it. You'll get the same temperature. You can get the same dilution from both of those things by doing them long enough. But it is fully a textural thing, and that is, our mouths are super sensitive to that. And those 2 cocktails never look the same. That shaken one is cloudy until it gets dumped down the drain, because I'm not drinking it.
So is the saline and cocktail, is that a new phenomenon? You've been doing this forever, but it seems like
I don't think it's new. I think it's becoming more widely accepted, right? It's just it just makes sense, right? And there's some people that popularized it. There's a guy named Dave Arnold. He wrote a really wonderful book, really nerdy book. It is not the first cocktail book you should buy. It's called Liquid Intelligence. He ran some great bars in New York City, and he's really the science in cocktails. And he definitely was an early one that was really pushing that. And a lot of bartenders adopted it. The salt in cocktails works best I find, in the sours. When you start putting it into your spirited cocktails, I'm not putting salt in my Manhattans. I'm not putting salt in my Old Fashioned. It really, really plays well with that citrus and sweetness from the simple syrup and that combination, and then brightens everything up in a lovely way. I'm not saying that's wrong to do otherwise, but it's just like, it is. I mean, we've all had bland food. It's not, and you don't want it to be so salty, like you're biting into a salt lick, but just a little bit goes a long way.
For sure.
But you're fine. You don't need it, for sure. I've had a million cocktails without it.
Well, I find it interesting. Next time I go to a bourbon bar, now I'm going to have to get a Boulevardier with the pinch of saline in there. Cause I want to like a bitter cocktail. Like I don't mind bitter food, but I want to like be able to call these fun drinks that everyone's like, oh, they're amazing. And I'm just like, my palate just can't handle the bitterness.
Oh yeah, it was different people have different sensitivity, especially to bitter.
Yeah.
There are it's a real documented thing, and you will hear them referred to as super tasters, and people get that. It's a bit of a misnomer. Super taster is not better taster. It is a heightened sensitivity to certain of the core flavors. Bitter being the one that's the most common. Yeah. So there are people that like cannot drink a lightly hopped beer. Tastes so hoppy to them. And where we're all sitting there, most of us are middle of the road, right? And then you've got a little bit on both sides, people that can just crush the when the hop war started or whatever. Like that's not for me either. I have a bit of sensitivity to bitter, so I'm not quite middle of the road. I'm a little bit more on the sensitive side, but I've grown to enjoy it. So it's a real thing. And if you taste something that's bitter and you're like, this is the worst thing I've ever had, it's not. You're not broken. It's just everyone's palate works a little bit differently. Our tongues process those 5 things: sweet, salty, bitter, sour, umami, and that is like, and any of those things can come through more pronounced for certain people.
For sure. Oh, and I know I'm not broken. I still think Manhattan's like the worst drink ever, so it's perfectly fine. I'm on
I love it, man. I love Boulevardier is one of my favorite bourbon cocktails. I love it, man.
I'm on a hill, and I'm up on the hill by myself, and I have my giant sword, and I'm still swinging it. No one's knocked me off of the hill that I will die on. About
that's Manhattan's. All right. You got. That's all right. There's plenty of other cocktails. That's it, man. That's we got volumes and volumes of books of cocktails for you. So there's something for everybody out there.
100%. Speaking of cocktails, one of the things that I like to do, and I know Scott does as well, we both, go to pools quite often, and it's summertime, right? What are some summertime whiskey cocktails, right? Because we see a lot of people switch to clear spirits, right? Obviously, for the summer, tequila goes hotter, rum goes hotter. But I like to stay in the whiskey family pretty much all year round. I'm just that kind of guy.
Sure.
What are some quality, maybe 1 or 2 whiskey cocktails that our listeners could, maybe craft at home, pretty simple and easy to enjoy?
Sure. Well, I mean, you guys are in the cradle of the granddaddy of the whiskey cooler, right? With the mint julep is like the ultimate cold sipper. And I feel like people forget about that cocktail 364 days out of the year.
Yep.
And go to it one day, right? Like in the beginning of May.
Yep.
And that's a damn shame, because it's a great cocktail. It is a beautiful cocktail, and you could tinker with it endlessly. It's great the way in its original form. Don't get me wrong. But I love to, mess with it, do a little prescription julep style cocktail and mix some bourbon and cognac together in it. Get a little, make your syrup, pineapple syrup. It's there's so much fun you can have with that cocktail. It is delicious. My problem with the mint julep is people talk about, oh, well, you just sat on the porch and you sipped it slow, and it was, quite a bit of whiskey in the drink, right? It's they go down so damn quick. It is a dangerous cocktail. Yeah. The whiskey sour we're talking about, endlessly you can mess around with, and you can start to work seasonal flavors in. You mentioned the Gold Rush, which we made, we had for a while as a Crafthouse cocktail, part of our prepared cocktail lineup, which is that's a modern classic. So that was made in the 2000s from a bar in New York. And that's just a bourbon sour, but instead of simple syrup, you're using honey. In that just a nice little touch to it, and you could tinker with that. It wants so many, almost any fruit. Think about all the things that are growing right now that go with bourbon. Like any kind of berry goes amazing. Any kind of herbs go amazing. Take that. You want, even if the julep's too much, stretch it out a little bit, lengthen it, make it a little bit lighter, lower ABV cocktail. Heck, we were talking earlier, guys, before we got started recording, and I've created drinks for the Derby for many, several years back in the day, and went down to Churchill Downs and designed, fresh cocktails. Of course, we served a lot of juleps as well, but trying to make some new signature drinks as well. And I wanted something for people that didn't want those spirit forward drinks that might, I'm like, how can I be the gateway? How can I make a gateway cocktail? And I was like, you don't see a lot of bourbon and champagne together. And I came up with this drink I called the Commonwealth cocktail after the great state of Kentucky. And it was bourbon and a little grapefruit liqueur and citrus and a grapefruit and hop bitter and then shaken with a little bit of champagne on top and a twist. It's delicious. It goes so well. And you don't think bourbon and bubbles, necessarily. I'll throw it for folks to sour, put a little, it's a good intro cocktail.
I love bubbles. And my buddy told me, once, like when you're having, a nice steak dinner or a fancy dinner, like have bubbles clean your palate. So if you can mix your bourbon with your palate cleanser, right, you can just do it all in one. Right? So I'm in on that. That sounds, nice.
I love that.
I don't have to order 2 drinks. I can just order one.
Champagne is definitely, it's true. That is right. It's a great palate cleanser. It really rinses you off. If you like, if I'm about to do a tasting or if I'm about to do blind tasting or whatnot, swishing a little bit of champagne, maybe swallow a little bit, but we're spitting along the way when we're tasting that stuff, of course, so you can keep your head on straight. But it is an amazing, it really does work well for to reset your palate.
Yeah, no, that sounds nice. I look forward to that. Maybe, we can get you shaking one up and we do a little collab post there for the week of the podcast drop, make you do a little work.
That'd be great. I'd love to.
No, this is awesome. I'm excited. And first of all, like my wife loves spicy margs. I was going to drink this, but I'm gonna let my wife enjoy this.
Save that one for her.
Save that one for her.
Nice.
Be a good husband. Because this, this was crushable. I don't know about your margarita. I'm going back to these, but like this daiquiri. Now I want to call a daiquiri non-slushy form. But how was your margarita or your mule?
Oh,
you had a mule. Sorry,
I went the mule.
Moscow Mule. Yeah, that's one of our originals. Not originals. One of our original from when we first started. It's like the cocktail goes back to the 1930s, but it was one of the first ones we launched though back in 2013 when we finally got on the shelves. But,
I'm a big time fan of lime, and I'm a gin and tonic fan, so I like bubbles. I like lime, and so this is right up my wheelhouse too.
Yeah, and you can't go wrong talking about cocktails with bourbon, right? Like the Kentucky Buck, Kentucky Mule. Great. That Moscow Mule with bourbon, delicious. Yeah. Absolutely great. Bourbon and citrus and ginger, like it's the same thing we're kind of talking about in a way. Yeah. But you take a nice spicy ginger beer in there, a little squeeze of lemon or lime, and some bourbon, and you might need a little syrup around to balance it out a bit, depending on what you're getting. It is delicious. Think about it. Like you're in college or whatever, people are ordering whiskey gingers. Yeah. But that's ginger ale. It's a little bit like, it's okay. It's like good, better, best. Yeah.
So like on the ginger beer, do you recommend a alcoholic or non-alcoholic ginger beer?
The ones I use are not alcohol. Don't have any alcohol to them. I've made my own ginger beer from scratch back in the day. And when you brew your own ginger beer, it has very small amounts of alcohol in it, but it's nominal, yeah, exactly. But there are honestly, the way I think about ingredients, if there are good quality commercial ingredients available, I'm not going to, spend a lot of times making stuff that somebody makes better than me. I'm not going to try to make a cola. You know what I mean? I'm going to buy Mexican Coca-Cola in the glass bottles. Like I can't do better than that. You know what I mean? No matter how many fancy ketchups you have that somebody made from scratch, they don't ever quite taste like I do that. But there's some really good. There are better and not quite as good ginger beers. You read the ingredients. If if it's corn syrup and ginger flavor, maybe move on to the next brand that's actually using real ginger and at least, some real sugar in it. Q, Fever Tree, those are super widely available. Both very, very sensible.
I got to give a shout
we
out to
make our ginger
Goslings.
beer for our Moscow Mule from scratch. What'd you say?
I got to give a shout out to Goslings, since the home of the dark and stormy in Bermuda, right? They can give you the rum.
Yeah, they're the OG.
And ginger beer.
They're the OG. Yep.
Yeah,
they're the OG. They were their only option for a long time.
For sure.
Find,
I think that's what I liked about this was it was just so refreshing, and it just tasted like I had made a cocktail, because a lot of the times you get those canned cocktails or the pre-mixed bottled cocktails, and they just taste artificial. Mm-hmm. There's always that weird bitter note when there shouldn't really be a bitter note. So
no, I appreciate that. And that is, we want you to, if I were to take this, pour it in a glass and garnish it nicely and put it, nice piece of ice in there and give it to you, I want you to think that, I want our people enjoying Crafthouse to be like, damn, this is as good as I get in a bar, or better sometimes, than I've gotten at the bar. And then we know we've done it right.
Yeah.
And again, that's just it. Like, we are making actual cocktails. We're not making liquid to taste like a cocktail. So we've got relationships with all of our spirits producers. I've been down to the distillery in Mexico where we source our tequila. I've been, we have a couple different bourbon partners that we've worked with over the years. Our gin has come right here out of Chicago from a little distillery. Our rum's from Plantaray Rum. We work with some great indie companies as well. Our Mai Tai was a great pet project. So we just actually got on United Airlines this year.
Oh, cool.
Which is huge. We're an independent brand. There's about 9 of us in the company. We've been going for 11 years, which is a long time for very difficult. As you guys know this, you've seen brands come and go. It is a tough business. And it's a beast. And, we don't have deep pockets or anything. It's not, I don't got a rich uncle sitting anywhere. Like, we're scrappy as heck. And we just try to make honest cocktails, but we got, the beverage lead for United. I think this guy tasted like 150 different prepared cocktails, different brands. There's 3 times that out there that you can find easily. And we made the cut, we made the finals, and then whittled down, and we were it. So it was a great, really great moment for us. And we've got our an original drink that I came up with called a Moonlighter, which is kind of like a vodka Collins, vodka spritz with chamomile and lavender. And we work with a little company called Brovo out of the Northwest, and they make a delicious vermouth that we use. And we've got our espresso martini on there as well. And then on their Hawaii flights, they've also got our daiquiri and our Mai Tai. And that Mai Tai was a labor of love. I love a tiki drink, and they can go wrong. So I think people like you were talking about the daiquiri.
Yeah.
Tiki drinks, people get a bad rap for because they've had too many, ones that have been so cloyingly sweet, right? Mm. And you see Mai Tais, 10 people make Mai Tais, and you've got them in every color of the rainbow all of a sudden for some reason. There's a recipe for it. There's nothing red in a Mai Tai. I don't know why people keep tossing grenadine and stuff in it. It does not belong, but there's almond syrup, orgeat, and we work with a little company for orgeat. So it's cool. We've had fun with it, and we try to just listen to people that are enjoying these cocktails and give them what they want and adjust things. And it's been good. It's been a fun part of the business, outside of actually bartending for people live and designing barware and whatnot, being able to do this project as well to give people cocktails in a place where they don't have a bartender right at hand necessarily.
For sure. Nice. Well, I can tell you that these are really refreshing. I'm excited. I saved 2 for the next trip to the pool. So I'm excited about that. Charles, we're thankful that you spent an hour with us here this evening talking about Crafthouse, helping us build our own bar, and some summer cocktails for our bourbon listeners and whiskey listeners alike. Where can people find out more about you, your barware, and Crafthouse Cocktails? We got to make sure you get some time to shine here at the end.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thanks so much. So we're our brand is at Drink Crafthouse on Instagram. Is a quick way to get a hold of us, or crafthousecocktails.com online. We've got all the information on that, store locators and all that that you can find. And if you hit us up through our Instagram, it comes to myself or my founding partner, Matt. Like we handle it. There's no red tape. We're the red tape. So otherwise, I'm on Instagram at Charles Joly, and you can find me there. And you know, a lot of always some kind of cocktails or travels or adventures that I'm going on there, and happy to answer any questions. Sherpa people through their booze experience as much as I can. But I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for having me. And I'm drinking whiskey. I don't know about you guys. I appreciate you guys drinking my cocktails. But I was like, well, if you guys, I'm on the bourbon.
Always got some whiskey on the side.
I'm drinking whiskey. What do you got in your glass?
Sagamore bottled and bond. Sagamore rye bottled and bond.
Nice.
Try
You just got Crafthouse, Jake?
Nope, I got Remus Experimental.
We always have
9 year.
we always like. I've even got tequila sitting here beside me. Like,
nice. I normally, like I said, would grab, but I had this. This is this one of early bottlings here. Delicious. So good.
Yeah.
It's too good.
Yeah.
Back there.
The Magnus Triple
very
Cask
recent
is
guest
very
on the
good.
podcast. So that's
it's cool.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate you
I saw
joining.
I'm a tasting judge with the San Francisco Spirits Comp, and I saw that they did great in the once everything got revealed. So that's cool. But anyway, yeah.
No, hey, really appreciate it. And that's a big honor. One of our two of our good friends are judges out there as well. Zach Johnston and Brandon Smith. So we know you probably know those two crazy goons. But really appreciate it. I look forward to, creating more conversation about cocktails here, because it's continuing to push the envelope, and we really appreciate you spending this hour with us. Make sure everyone follows Charles. If you're looking for an RTD, I highly recommend these. It's a great drink, super refreshing. And we'll catch everyone next time on the next episode of the Bourbon Lens. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bourbon Lens. Make sure you're connected with Scott and I via social media on Instagram, X, and Facebook. We'd love to connect. And if you're more the professional type, follow us over on LinkedIn. If you want to know more about Bourbon Lens, make sure you're subscribed to our weekly newsletter, The Weekly Pour. For exclusive content and more, check out Patreon. Follow us there at Bourbon Lens. And last but not least, on your favorite podcast listening app, make sure you're subscribed, because every Monday, Scott and I release a podcast, and we would love to have you here listening to the newest features and the newest whiskey news. And until next time, cheers.